But I think it's really like a fundamental reimagination of who gets to participate and own anything. We were only ever given one role in this script, and we like threw the whole play away and we're like, no, we want to like own stuff. And that's throwing everything off because it's not how we were ever imagined in this system.
Yeah.
So my question is, how do you go from being owned to being owners, right? What do we as a people need to unlearn, and what do we need to learn?
Ever wonder what it takes to unlock true Black innovation and wealth creation? You're in the right place.
This is From Chains to Links, where the brightest Black minds, entrepreneurs, academics, creatives, and futurists reimagine what it means to build generational wealth and a thriving Black community.
We're not just talking about change, we're building it. Stick around because this conversation is about to spark something different.
Hey, everybody. I know you're wondering what we're cracking up about. You got to watch the rest of the episode. I am Kelly Burton, and I am your co-host, and I'm here with Ifoma Ike. Hey, Ifoma.
Hey, Kelly.
How are you?
I am so great. I'm already excited about this episode.
Me too.
I love our guests already.
We were talking about your buttons, the beautiful gold buttons on your jacket.
And then I told them that it was in honor of James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones.
AKA King Joffrey Joffer. Which wasn't the truth, but he just passed away. And so I thought it was great to honor him. And then everybody, and then the conversation went to fineness, which is not a problem because, we're talking about Black people.
It's right on topic.
It is.
Yes,
it is.
yes.
So who are our fine guests with us today?
Well, we're excited because we're gonna have the conversation today with Rahama Wright and Danielle Toussaint, who are both amazing entrepreneurs, because it's so important for us to have a deeper understanding of the nuanced experience of Black entrepreneurs in this moment, especially since the Supreme Court decision against affirmative action and all the ripple effects that has had in the entrepreneur community. So before we get into that, I want you to tell us a little bit about you and your background. So Rahama, we'll start with you. You're closest to me.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here. So my name is Rahama Wright, and I am the founder of Yaleen Beauty. And what we are is we are a manufacturing facility for early stage beauty businesses in Washington, D.C. We remove barriers to entry in terms of giving folks the space to make products so that we as a community can capture a much larger market share of the multi-billion-dollar beauty industry.
Love it. Thank you, Rahama. Danielle.
Glad to be here, first of all. I'm still the 8-year-old girl that nobody told couldn't do whatever she wanted. So I'm grateful for that. I'm all the things I was. I was bossy. I was always planning events. I planned my teacher's retirement party in the 3rd grade. And when I think about my day job, right, I run Purple House, which is a creative intelligence and strategic communications consultancy. And I basically do that. Like, I direct a lot of teams, creative teams. I help executive leaders figure out their voice, and I throw a lot of parties and events, and so it's really a joy. And I focus specifically on folks that are trying to create impact.
So both of you have access to not only your personal experience, but you each in your own way support other entrepreneurs in their journey. So let's just talk a little bit about what it's been like to exist as a Black business owner over the course of the last year or so, because it was August when that decision came down. So any reflections?
Yeah, when I saw that decision came down, my immediate emotion was just pure rage. I think that to see how the advances we have made as a community in this country be pulled back and under attack, especially since we still have such a small market share in so many industries, it's upsetting, it's angering. And to know that Black women founders capture less than 0.5% of venture funding, and to see the Fearless Fund have to fight these attacks to just give us a little tiny piece of the pie, it makes you feel like we're, back in the 50s and the 60s. And I think that we collectively need to fight back.
I love it. Hence, Declaration 26, which is an innovation counterplan to Project 2025. But we'll talk about that
Yes.
later in the season.
Yes.
Danielle.
I had a delayed reaction because at the time the decision came down, I wasn't running my consultancy full time. I was in-house in an executive role where we supported other early stage innovators. And so I had this sort of like second-hand reaction, but I understood the implications. And then when starting over in January, I think it just gave me, honestly, a different resolve. Owning things is absolutely necessary. And if we just balance things out, we'd create 9 million jobs, right? So to me, it's like, that's what's at stake. It's just creating if I create, just a few of those, if we all just decided, I think we could shift that sort of power dynamic.
And that's just not about implications for Black people and Black communities, but that's about creating a stronger economy for everyone, right?
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like for capitalism if you really truly embody capitalism, then what you said is what I think would resonate through a lot of people's minds. Like, we're hindering growth, we're hindering prosperity, and Black businesses continue to show that when they hire, when they create products, more people become consumers, which adds to the economy. More people are able to pay their bills, which adds to stability. So it almost begs the question, is this really about something else? Because if this was purely about making money or creating a stronger, economic reality, even if you don't necessarily believe that all people should be engaged, to be honest with you, in a fair participation, there's something about, well, if you care about money, then you should have also been like, well, this is going to hurt the pocket. So I love that it's the combination of like new resolve, but also rage. And I don't want to lose that there's a eloquent rage, shout out to Brittany Cooper, that there's an eloquent way to be angry about this and then turn into action, which I hope is what's happening.
To just piggyback off what you said, it's about power and control. This period that we're living in, as we see more and more people wanting to have more equity and a bigger share of this pie that we call the American dream, we are going to be under attack. And it's about telling us that we need to stay in our place. This is what this decision ultimately is communicating to the Black community, is you're reaching too far and you need to be pulled back. And for me, as someone who's been 2 decades being an entrepreneur and, failing forward often and pivoting, we can't allow individuals, organizations, and special interest groups to tell us who we are and to tell us what we deserve in this country, especially when we built this country.
Amen. Amen. So talk a little bit about, because I feel that being an entrepreneur is a very nuanced experience, that if you're not an entrepreneur, you really don't get it. So can you talk a little bit about what it takes to build a successful company in this current climate?
You're making me go first. I'll say this. It feels very different doing this now than it felt in 2017 when I was running my prior agency. And I think collaboration is one of the things that will be like what distinguishes those who survive and those who don't. We've been so programmed to compete, and this is not a time for that. So many resources are now being constrained. There's just a lot of, I don't know, like just this shrinkage, it feels like sometimes, in ways in which people want to engage. And if we play small, which is just what I can do to edge you out, we will lose. Yeah. This is not a game for small-mindedness, and we only get big when we go together. And so to me, I think that is the thing, that everything I do is done in partnership. I have collaborators. I am on so many other people's projects. There's always cross-referrals. That is the only way I think you play this game successfully.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
I think there's a misconception that being an entrepreneur, you can take vacation anytime you want to. And it's just this like, the Instagram post of being on a beach somewhere or, having all the time in the world. And it's a lot of work. And being an entrepreneur in this time, to your question, you're going to shed some tears. There are going to be some amazing highs and some very low lows. And I think in order to your point, in order to be successful, you have to have and know who is in your tribe, who has your back, and whose back you also have. And it is about collective movement forward. I have this love-hate relationship with the word capitalism, because capitalism, the way it has been perpetuated in this world, is about excluding others. It's about how can I take resources from one group and make another group successful. It's about domination. And I think that capitalism does not work for our community. We have to be focused on how do we get our community together to move forward. Instead of what you're talking about, we see the model of being the only one, being number one, making year over year profitability that is so unsustainable that we're seeing the tech industry letting go thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs because of the way capitalism has been perpetuated in this world. And I think we need to move to collective economics. We need to move back to what we used to do as a community here, not only in the US, but the global diaspora. And, the intersection of Pan-Africanism and working to build our communities together and supporting each other and bringing Black dollars back into the Black community. And that is what I think this moment is calling us to do. The Black buying power, the U.S. Black buying power is $1.6 trillion. We have the resources, but it's a matter of how do we get those resources aligned back into our community? How do we take this idea of supporting Black and truly committing to it so that we can transform communities here in the U.S. as well as communities in the diaspora? For me, I believe that the way we address a lot of our systemic issues is through partnership with our African counterparts.
Where did you find my soapbox? Those are my talking over here reading my mind and stuff. But seriously, that's the impetus behind From Chains to Links, right? So how do we rediscover collective economics? What is the collective play? That's at the heart of a lot of what we're trying to figure out at Black Innovation Alliance.
Yeah, and I think that, so in the first season, we started that uncovering of these complicated conversations around what does capitalism mean? Is Black capitalism a different term? Collective economics, does everyone understand what that means?
Yeah.
Collective economics, is it the same as cooperative economics, right? And just like being unafraid to have the conversation, recognizing that oftentimes, let's even use the term like feminism, a lot of Black people would not say that they are feminist
Right.
because of the white feminist movement and what that means. But feminism, as it means to like the, equalizing of a people, I would say, well, the first feminist was probably Harriet Tubman, because she was like, I ain't about this life. I'm about freedom, and I'm gonna keep running towards freedom, and I'm gonna keep coming back and getting some people, even my no good husband, but that's a whole nother conversation. And I'm gonna keep getting free, right? Which is also to say that like the definition of a thing in some ways changes when we decide that we are going to make it our own. So I love that you are raising that, and in a lot of ways, I would say that even the things that America claims that it believes in is not what they really believe in. So for those that do believe in capitalism, we're also challenging the question of like, is that really what's happening? Because by definition, our participation would be welcomed, because when we were participating for free and forced through slavery, y'all gained a lot. And our participation shows that you are still gaining a lot. So there's like this, From Chains to Links is also here to unearth these really uncomfortable conversations that even people that claim that they're allies aren't necessarily
Right.
wanting to have that conversation.
Yeah.
We might take that though one step further, which is that we weren't ever designed into this system as participants. We were designed into this system as product. So like people think about Wall Street and even just its like physical location in New York City, but it was there because that's where slave ships were able to like unload, and then from there they would do the trading. And so we were a commodity that was traded for the beginning of the capitalist system that we have. And so when you were only ever even like anticipated to be something that was bought and sold, you were never meant to own. And I actually think that that's really what's being challenged in all of this. And yes, it is a form of power, but I think it's really like a fundamental reimagination of who gets to participate and own anything. We were only ever given one role in this script, and we like threw the whole play away and we're like, no, we want to like own stuff. And that's throwing everything off because it's not how we were ever imagined in this system.
Yeah.
So my question is, because we bring this up a lot, what does it go, to your point, Danielle, how do you go from being owned to being owners, right? What do we as a people need to unlearn, and what do we need to learn?
We need to unlearn the idea of anyone having the power to determine our destiny in this world. White people did not create Black people. White people do not own Black people. And I think that we too often are waiting for permission to realize the change that we know we need to see in our community. And I also think that's part of the pushback. And that's why I was saying it's like, oh, you're reaching too far. Well, no one should limit how far we reach or how far we go. And we also need to unlearn the difference between Black elitism and Black excellence. It's not the same thing. And that is part of this conversation we don't talk enough about.
Where's our church
That
fans?
is creating
Church fans for our show.
that is limiting us, really and truly.
Yes.
And I see that here
Yes.
in DC, where I live. I see it when I travel the continent. And we need to really divest from the systems that continue to really hold us back, right? And I also believe we need to double down on supporting each other financially. I'm in the beauty industry. McKinsey data shows that of the 60 billion that's generated, 60 billion plus that's generated annually in the US beauty industry, Black businesses only capture 1.5 billion, while Black consumers consume 6.6 billion. We can just look at the numbers and see the unfair market share, but what you were saying before, what we contribute, that fact that we're contributing to these industries. And so we need to come to a point where we decide we're taking it. We're not asking for permission. We are taking what is rightfully ours. And it goes back to ownership. By building, when we look at the beauty supply chain and value chain, starting in Africa with plant-based ingredients all the way here to retailers, one of the things that I've seen consistently is that we do not own distribution, we do not own manufacturing, there's so many pieces of it we don't own. The manufacturing piece is so incredibly important. And so building the Yaleen Beauty Makerspace and creating the opportunity for Black and brown founders to own the market around manufacturing is part of building new systems. We need to say, this system doesn't work for us. We're creating our own systems. And you can come with us or you can stay behind.
And that's a needle like we could move in 18 months.
Yeah.
In 18 months, in another, annual data round, we can move from that 1.5 to 6%, right?
Yeah.
It's just deciding that we as a community are going to exclusively purchase our products from Black folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Danielle, what do we need to unlearn?
I think it's most of what we learn in school. Like when I think about my K through 12 education and how much of it on a day-to-day basis was setting me up for everything that I do in my life today, it's a fraction. And it was almost everything I was doing outside of my regular classroom day. It was everything I did through leadership in the community, through just having like parents in a wonderful faith community that just consistently poured into me and helped me develop character and lots of these other skills that then, you know, allow me to do the work that I do. Like, it wasn't the classroom curriculum. And so I think the real question we need to ask ourselves, like right now, is are we okay with continuing to teach our young people things that they actually don't need and not teach them everything that they do need? Are we like content with a structure where like by the time they even discover owning entrepreneurship as a real pathway for wealth building, and I would just say like life building, like just the freedom that you have to make decisions about where you are, who you are, and what that affords you, like are we okay with them only getting there once they're maybe going to post-secondary? And then if not, just flailing? While I find that many other communities invest all of that in their young people, and they just almost make it like a predetermined thing that they will be owners. And so they train them from the very beginning to occupy a certain space. I just think the whole curriculum needs to get thrown out. And I think we need to say like, there are really wonderful, innovative models, but how do we make this the standard in our K through 12 education experiences? And how do we stop assuming everybody needs it to be K through 12 when some of our young people are brilliant entrepreneurs and demonstrating promise even when they're like 13, 14, like how do we start to create shorter cycles, high school leading to post-secondary pathways before you get to the 12, so young people can start their lives and really begin to contribute to their communities, for their own families, for their own well-being. And I just want to note that like in an age where we have AI innovations that are accelerating and we have a creator economy that's booming, that many of our kids are entering as consumers more than they are as creators and producers and owners. How do we ask different questions about the ways that technology could accelerate this learning for us as a community, and also recognize that they have like a native fluency in technology that we may not have if we're millennials or older, and we actually need to flip this and just give them space and let them teach us what is possible for them. Yeah. So I just think there's not a lot we're learning right now that I'm ready to hold on to. I think this is really needs to be a space where we like, you know, start whiteboard, white paper, like what could it look like?
I'm in this double dutch. All of y'all are, and the rope has hit me like 3 times because I'm not the best at double dutching. But as you were talking, a couple things. One, I always get frustrated in a beautiful way when somebody talks about education, because A, it's true, and B, when I think of where the most elite send their school, it's to Montessori schools, which were schools that were modeled after poor Black women in projects and in the ghetto were teaching their children different ways outside of the school system, on ways for them to explore nature, explore the world. And they were being studied by a white, researcher who then developed the Montessori program and attributes it to mothers in the projects, in the hoods, that were teaching their children, and yet it is the most exclusive form of education. So as you're talking, I continue to be, when you think of the top 5 tech companies, and really Fortune 5, if you want to be honest, 4 of those 5 founders went to Montessori. Steve Jobs was the only one who did not, but sent his kids to Montessori's, right? So what does that mean? That means that when you're talking about this fluency, certain things about digital technology are not only going to advance, they're going to advance in they're advancing quicker than they ever have before. So it's not on the teachers, though, to know everything about the technology. It's on the teachers to expose those young people as early as they can to evolving technologies. But if you have teachers that are not necessarily connected to that fluency, and there's no revamp of our K through 12, now you're having young people who are thinking they're doing exactly what their parents told them they need to do, some of them subscribing to Black elitism, but there still is this divide between, like, you may have all these degrees, but you may not necessarily be able to compete in this economy. So I find that we need to be having a different conversation. And I used to actually be one of those people that was like, I don't know about Black excellence, right? Because Black excellence and Black elitism were often conflated with each other. But if we started it, I'm going to say by reclaiming Black excellence, right, and recognizing that I do inherently believe that's different than Black elitism,
Yes.
then I think we can really also start imagining how excellence in education means evolving at a quicker pace to be connected into these growth models versus these competition models that oftentimes we needed to have a livable wage, if we're going to be honest. That's why we have these degrees. So yeah, no, this is exactly, and the final thing I'll add is this is also connected to our policymakers. So one of the things that for the last decade, many of us have been frustrated about is that it's not that our electeds don't care, it's that many of them aren't fluent in like the ever evolving digital technology space, right? And that's across race, across region. So how do you hold, some of these tech companies accountable if you don't understand the science, if you don't understand how it works? So I think this is ultimately a global economic challenge if we're not fluent enough to compete, but also to regulate,
So we have a lot of entrepreneurs who watch the podcast. Can you give our entrepreneurs one piece of advice from your journey of how they can really have some staying power as an entrepreneur?
It's all about your team. You have to really understand how to build teams. For anyone to be successful, the entrepreneurship, the way that we talk about entrepreneurs is always about one person. It's always about this founder did this, tackled this problem, and became enormously successful. And it's like, that's not the real story. This person had a whole group of folks, from investors, advisors, team members, whatever it may be, that helped get their vision out there and grow that vision to be successful. And I think it goes back to the way we model and we communicate. This whole idea that one person can take on a mountain and be so successful on their own, we miss this huge other part of the story where it's that first hire, or the second or third. It's the team members, the people around you are so important. So the first thing I would say is, who's around you? Who do you need to be around you, or who do you need to be around? And how do you build that support system to be able to grow your business?
And something that I learned as an entrepreneur, you have to have some level of self-awareness as to the extent to which you are a good manager.
Right.
Because a lot of entrepreneurs are not good managers. And it's really, you have to learn and unlearn and be self-aware and have people hold the mirror up to you. But yes, that's a big piece. Build the team, but then work on yourself. Because if you're going to be managing people,
I recommend.
you're going to have to be in a well place.
Yeah.
Danielle?
And to that point, part of who you hire on your team should not be carbon copies of you. It should be like building a well-rounded team that can, sort of flow with you and cover for those places where maybe you aren't the one. Maybe you shouldn't be doing the COO role. Maybe you should just go get you a COO, right? And let that person be great. You asked about what I would say, and I say one of them is divorce yourself as entrepreneur, the identity, from the person who is every day making decisions and sort of actively working towards your goal. I think sometimes right now entrepreneurship is this lifestyle thing. It's been marketed. I don't know who is doing the copy. It's all lies. It is hard and it's not linear. You are still an entrepreneur, even if you take a step back and work in someone else's company towards their vision, to build capital, to build skills, to make sure that you're well, your mental health, and then come back to it. Those changes, your identity is still entrepreneur, but you are building what you need for the bigger vision. And I'd say the next part of that is set your own success metrics. I hear everybody trying to be a unicorn, and I'm like, do you know how much money is between 0 and $1 billion? Do you know how many other goals you could have had in between that? And your life would have been fine. You would have been retiring. You could have been on a beach somewhere, but you're out here hustling for VCs so that you can be a unicorn. And then what? And I just don't think people are setting their own success measures. Mine are around my well-being and health. And I don't just set metrics around what I want my company to do. I set metrics around what I want to be able to contribute back to the broader ecosystem. So whether I'm leading as a founder of anything or I'm working in another role, like I have tracked over the past 10 years and like have personally either done deals, contracted with, or helped raise $5 million for other woman and Black woman owned companies. And to me, that's how I am measuring my success, because it's not just about me and mine, it's about us. Right. And so I think we have to set those ourselves, or we will get sucked into a culture that was not designed for our well-being or for our wealth, quite frankly. And that's very depleting.
Can I just say something really quickly on that? Because we all hear the statistic about Black women being the fastest segment of entrepreneurs opening doors and opening businesses. We are also the fastest to close them. And based on JP Morgan's stats, the average Black-owned, woman-owned business in America generates less than $25,000 a year, and we are not employers. And so when you're talking about that, the metrics, I could not agree more with this super huge obsession we have with being unicorns and being so big, when what we need in our community is healthy, profitable businesses.
Yes.
You can be a unicorn and not be profitable.
That's right.
You know, and people, you know, understanding the difference between like top line revenue and profitability, and understanding how to manage cash flow and all of these things that we need in our businesses, in our community. But we're so, you know, focused on this idea of the only way to be successful, it's to be huge and have hundreds of millions of dollars. And what we need in our community is for our companies to go from making less than that $25,000 a year to a healthy, profitable six-figure, seven-figure. That's a good business.
That's right.
And we need to reteach people that to be a successful business does not only mean bringing in 8, 9, 10 figures, when so many of our small businesses in our community can't even make it, right? Can't even get to a place where they're making it. And I think I so agree with you. I think part of that is redefining what it is to be successful in business. And another thing, to the unlearn question, we have to, oh my gosh, I believe this so much. We have to not see other Black people as the enemy. How do we unlearn that and really see each other as, if you're in the room, I'm in the room. If I'm in the room, you're in the room. How do we get to a place where we can be radically supportive of each other? Radically supportive of each other. Like when Issa Rae was like at that award show, she was like, when they asked her who she was supporting, she was like, everyone Black, you know, and that, you know, like, why would you even ask me this question, right? And I think that there's still a mental leap that we have in our community where being radically supportive of each other is not seen as an asset.
It's seen as a risk.
I want to share, though, that I don't think that we just made that up. And I really so to this point around like who's our audience and how do we change those behaviors? Like we have to create that safety for one another.
Absolutely.
Like modeling that. Yes. So when you have an opportunity and a business, you know, whatever presents and it's not for you and you know it's not for you, saying out loud in the moment, I'm not sure this is for me, but here are 3 other amazing founders I know that you should talk to.
Yes.
And I've done that a few times and it's come back and it's been like, this was so great. It was like the right connection. We are so sometimes starved for just like the next dollar, the scarcity, the insecurity leads us to hoard every opportunity versus taking an approach of like this radically abundant mindset of saying like there will always be more and what's for me won't miss me. And so therefore this must be for you and you are a facilitator. The other thing is the way in which the ecosystem that supports and nurtures early stage founders is part of the problem because it teaches us that whatever we thought was successful was not big enough.
Right.
It teaches us. I can't tell you how many accelerators I've been to that were for Black and brown or spaces that were meant to incubate. But the first thing you get in the door, and because of who is sponsoring or funding them, there is this pressure for them to try to push everyone to figure out these business models that work really well for returns for people you don't know, that you don't even think even want to invest in you yet. Like you haven't even been able to execute your initial idea. Someone's already talking you out of it to tell you that it's not right or it's not big enough or it's not scalable. So we've got to also interrogate every step in the process where we are trying to do good and make sure that we're not doing harm inadvertently by making people feel super self-conscious about their goals that might be achievable, might get you to profitability in the name of, sort of building this bigger tech ecosystem or business ecosystem that's just, it's working against us.
Oh my God, so true. So if you want to close us out.
Wow, I don't want to close this out.
I know,
'Cause
I
want to
know.
stay here forever. We're moving beyond like just the mire of the Supreme Court decision by doing exactly what I think you all are talking about, modeling what is, even when it feels like it isn't, right? And one of those things is like, you know what, damn it, we have the right to innovate. It's not something that we need to negotiate. It's not something that we need to ask permission for. So want to hear from each of you, when you hear the right to innovate, what sparks for you? What does that look like? What do the conditions look like when we say we have the right to innovate? Just some of your thoughts around that phrase. And put in another way, if you were to say, these things being here prove that we have the right to innovate, what does that look like? So either one of those or a combination of those thoughts or feelings.
I'm not even sure if I'm going to get to either. I'm going to choose option C.
Option C.
Which is like, what does this look like for me? Mm-hmm. It has looked like for me believing and being like very clear that I can be more than one thing. I can do more than one thing, even at the same time. It doesn't mean that I'm doing everything, but it does mean that there's like a belief in our multifacetedness and an embracing of all the dimensions of our both intellect and ingenuity and creativity. I have a for-profit Purple House. I literally incorporated the nonprofit arm to it, Dream Purple Foundation, which is focused on helping solve the downstream problem, which is AI is already displacing so many people in the creative economy. How we do work, how we do marketing, how we do websites, how we do film production, all of it is shifting. So I am obviously in a creative company helping organizations leverage all this while simultaneously seeing that there is this approaching shift in how we will all be doing our jobs. And my path won't be the next person graduating from college's path. They won't get here. They will have to do something different. They will have to use technology differently. And being a part of that solution, even as I help people figure out today's problems, is how I say, like, I have a right to innovate. I don't have to just wait for something to happen to me, for jobs to go away, for my entire industry to shift. I can actually decide right now to be the people who solve for it. And I think we all need to be asking ourselves, what jobs will exist? Even if you are building a company right now, if it's 2024, please don't be building this company in a way that is super analog. Like, you have to ask yourself,
100%.
what will every industry look like? It will look different.
Yes.
So start building it. Start building it differently.
Amen. Amen.
The way that I'm understanding the question is we have a right to show up as Black founders and Black entrepreneurs, period. I think this moment, people are making us question whether or not we should be leaning into our Blackness because our Blackness is under attack.
Right.
And so, like you were saying earlier, it's risky to be Black. It's risky to support other Black entrepreneurs. It's, all of this risk around who we are and how we show up in the world. And so part of this idea of the right to innovate is I have a right to show up the way I want to show up in this world as an entrepreneur and as a business leader. This is how I'm showing up. And you can attack it, but I have a right to defend myself and continue to plant my feet down and say, I'm not going to move. And I think that scares people, that Black people are actually saying, okay, you know what, we're going to fight for what is not only ours and what we've worked for and what we deserve, but you can't just come and take it away from us, even though they are trying to, right? And so part of this right is also about being able to have choice and being able to make our own choices. And for me, and very similar to what you're talking about, we build business in community and build it collectively. And so the makerspace that we're building here in DC is not just for my company, my brand. It's for all brands that want to grow in this industry. And I agree so much. We're trying to think through, like, how do we incorporate biotechnology? How do we incorporate AI in our formulation? How do we figure out how, from the beginning, create a facility and a space that addresses sustainability and energy, and creating something that is for the future, but is also for the future for our community. And I think that is that process of really thinking through what innovation means. But we can't shy away from the fact that how we look in this world, the fact that we have Black skin, the fact that we have Afro hair, and we have culture from all these different places in the diaspora is under attack, and we cannot back away from our Blackness. We need to be fully, part of our innovation is our Blackness and our stories and the history that we have, not only on these shores, but on the shores of the world. And I really want us to feel a sense of not only pride, because I do believe we have that pride, but a sense of resolve that we will never back away from who we are as a community.
So powerful. This conversation has been so powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing, but also thank you for what you model.
Yeah.
It's so important, and all the good work that you do. So grateful.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yay.
You.
Ooh, child, we just took y'all to church. You welcome. You can sleep in on Sunday. Don't tell your pastor I said that. But thank you all for joining us for another episode of From Chains to Links. We heard we need to radically support one another. It's not just about me and mine. It's about us. Gems. And it's all so true. And these are ideas and thoughts that are just going to continue to cycle in my mind and in my spirit. And so I hope it had the same effect for you. Join us again for the next episode of From Chains to Links, where we are going to continue to go there. We appreciate y'all. See you next time. Bye.
Thanks for riding with us on today's journey. If this episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend.
Visit FromChainsToLinks.com for more content, and make sure to subscribe on our YouTube.
Follow us on Instagram at @BuildWithBIA, and let's keep this movement growing.
The road to true Black prosperity is built together, and we need you to do it.